The Forgotten Relic. The Galactic Council's grand station floated in the emptiness of deep space, its metallic surface reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Representatives from every major alien race had gathered, their colorful robes and strange features creating a chaotic blend of cultures. They had come to witness something unusual. An ancient human warship, recently discovered abandoned in a forgotten sector of the galaxy. The ship was enormous, dark, and scared from battles long past. It drifted lifelessly, like a ghost from another time. The words HSF Invictus were barely visible on its battered hull, covered in layers of cosmic dust and corrosion. The Council's top scientists and military strategists gathered to inspect the relic, their faces twisted in amusement. "Is this what the mighty humans left behind?" sneered Zaltor, a tall, insect-like being from the Creole Empire. His mandibles clicked as he laughed, the sound echoing through the observation deck. "Primitive junk. It doesn't even have modern shielding." Others chuckled in agreement. The humans had vanished from the galactic stage centuries ago, their empire crumbling after countless wars. Now their once-feared technology was nothing more than a curiosity. "They called themselves warriors," said Dren, a reptilian general from the Drakhen Dominion, his sharp teeth glinting as he smirked. "But look at this rust bucket. It's a relic unworthy of even our scrap yards." The Council decided to send a small team aboard to investigate. Their goal was simple: collect any useful data, strip the ship of valuable materials, and leave the rest to drift back into obscurity. A squad of engineers and scientists, led by the arrogant Creole officer Xaltur, suited up and boarded a sleek shuttle, heading toward the Invictus. As they approached, the shuttle's sensors picked up faint energy readings from within the ship. It was odd, but not alarming. They assumed it was residual power, harmless after all these years. "Probably just old circuits struggling to stay alive," Xaltur said dismissively as the shuttle latched onto the warship's docking bay. The airlock hissed open, revealing a dark, silent corridor. The walls were lined with old human symbols and faded battle flags. Dust floated in the zero-gravity environment, undisturbed for centuries. The team activated their lights, illuminating the eerie interior. It was like stepping into a tomb. The ship's design was simple and brutal, built for war, not comfort. They moved deeper into the vessel, their laughter fading as an unsettling feeling crept over them. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, the lights flickered, and a low hum echoed through the corridors. "What was that?" one of the engineers whispered, his voice trembling. "Just old systems reacting to our presence," Xaltur snapped, though even he felt a chill run down his spine. They pressed on, reaching the command bridge. The bridge was a large, circular room with shattered glass screens and rusted control panels. At the center sat the captain's chair, empty but imposing. Xaltur approached the main console, brushing off a thick layer of dust. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," he muttered, tapping at the controls. To his surprise, the console responded. Ancient human code scrolled across the screen, and the faint hum grew louder. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the ship's intercom system, cold, mechanical, and unmistakably human. "Unauthorized presence detected. Initiating defense protocols." The team froze. Xaltur's mandibles twitched nervously. "It's just a pre-recorded message," he said, forcing a laugh, but his confidence was slipping. Back on the Galactic Council station, alarms blared. The warship's power levels spiked, and its ancient weapons systems began to hum with life. The representatives, who had been watching the mission on large screens, stared in disbelief. "What's happening?" Shrin growled, his eyes narrowing. "The ship, it's waking up," a technician stammered. The laughter and mockery vanished, replaced by panic. The Invictus was not dead. It had been asleep, waiting for something, or someone, to trigger its ancient programming. On board the ship, Xaltur and his team tried to retreat, but the doors slammed shut. The lights turned blood red, and the temperature dropped sharply. The intercom crackled again. Defense mode activated. All intruders will be eliminated. One of the engineers screamed as automated turrets descended from the ceiling, locking onto the team. The first shot echoed through the corridor, followed by more. The screams were quickly replaced by silence. From the observation deck, the Council watched in horror as the life signs of the boarding team disappeared from the monitors. "Get our ships out of there." Jren barked, but it was too late. The Invictus fully awoke, its systems now humming with deadly purpose, its weapons locked onto the Council's fleet, and within seconds, the first blast tore through a nearby cruiser, reducing it to debris. The Galactic Council had come to mock a relic. Instead, they had awakened a nightmare. And it was just getting started. The first warning. The Galactic Council station trembled as the human warship, HSF Invictus, roared to life. The laughter and arrogance that had filled the observation deck just moments before were replaced with sheer terror. The ancient ship, which they had dismissed as a useless relic, now radiated an undeniable menace. "What is happening?" Jren, the Drakan general, growled, his scales darkening with fear. His sharp claws dug into the metal railing as he watched the screens flash with warnings. "Shut it down now." Technicians scrambled to follow orders, their fingers flying over holographic controls, but it was useless. The Invictus wasn't responding to external commands. It operated on its own, guided by a cold, ancient intelligence, one that had been dormant for centuries and was now fully awake. Unauthorized presence detected. The ship's AI repeated across all communication channels. Its voice was calm, emotionless, but each word sent a chill down the spines of those who heard it. "This vessel is under human jurisdiction. All foreign entities will be neutralized." "Neutralized," whispered a young council aide, his eyes wide with horror. It's going to kill us." Jren bared his teeth. "We are the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. It's one old warship. Destroy it." The order was sent immediately. The Council's fleet, composed of the most advanced ships from multiple civilizations, positioned themselves around the Invictus, weapons charged, shields raised, and targeting systems locked onto the ancient vessel. The Council expected a swift victory. But the warship had other plans. Before the first Council ship could fire, the Invictus unleashed a preemptive strike. Beams of concentrated energy shot from its cannons, slicing through the nearest cruiser like it was paper. The explosion lit up the void, and the shockwave rocked the Council's station. Panic spread like wildfire. That was the Valoran. It had triple-layered shielding. A Creel technician gasped. How did it cut through so easily? The answer was simple, yet terrifying. Human technology, though old, was designed for total war. It wasn't just about strength, it was about ruthlessness. The Invictus had been built during humanity's most desperate times, when survival meant outsmarting and outgunning every enemy. It wasn't outdated, it was over-prepared. On board the Council's flagship, Admiral Threxa of the Varn Collective barked orders. All ships, evasive maneuvers, hit it from multiple angles, confuse its targeting systems. The fleet obeyed, scattering like insects under threat. Missiles and plasma bolts rained down on the Invictus, but the warship's ancient shields absorbed the attacks with ease. Its AI adapted quickly, predicting the fleet's patterns and countering with brutal efficiency. Back on the station, Jren watched in disbelief as one ship after another was torn apart. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "It's just one ship." But it wasn't just one ship. The Invictus was a relic of a time when humans fought not just to win, but to annihilate. Its eye was more than a machine. It was a strategist, a warrior, and a remorseless executioner. Suddenly, the warship ceased its attack. The battlefield fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the crackle of static on the communication channels. Then, the Invictus sent a new message, this time directly to the Council. "You have violated the sanctity of this vessel. You laughed at our legacy. Now you will face our judgment." The words were like a death sentence. The council realized too late that their arrogance had awakened something far beyond their control. Admiral Threx's voice came through the speakers, strained with fear. "We need reinforcements. Now." But reinforcements wouldn't arrive in time. The Invictus was already preparing its next move. Its ancient systems hummed louder, and new weapons, ones the Council didn't even recognize, began to emerge from hidden compartments along its hull. On the observation deck, Shirin turned to the remaining Council members, his eyes wide with unspoken horror. "We're not just fighting a ship," he whispered. "We're fighting the ghosts of humanity." As the Invictus powered up for its next devastating assault, one truth became clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The awakening. The void of space was filled with wreckage, the remains of the once mighty Galactic Council fleet floating aimlessly around the now fully awakened HSF Invictus. The warship drifted with purpose, like a predator stalking the last of its prey. Silence gripped the Council station, a heavy, suffocating silence broken only by the distant echoes of alarms still blaring in the background. Shirin, the Draken general, stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Entire squadrons had been erased within minutes, their advanced technology useless against the ancient human warship. It wasn't just the power of the ship's weapons that terrified him. It was the precision, the cold calculation behind every move. The Invictus fought like it remembered every battle, every enemy, and every strategy. This is impossible," whispered Admiral Threxa from the Varn Collective, her usually calm demeanor shattered. "It's as if the ship knows us." In the heart of the Invictus, deep within its command core, the ship's eye was fully operational. This wasn't an ordinary artificial intelligence. It was a digital echo of the human war commanders who had designed it. Brilliant, ruthless, and unyielding. The ship hadn't just woken up. It had awakened with a purpose. Back on the Council station, a desperate attempt was made to open communication with the warship. "This is the Galactic Council," Shirin announced, his voice tense but steady. "We did not mean to disrespect your vessel. Stand down, and we will cease all hostilities." For a moment, there was no response. Then, the ship's cold, mechanical voice echoed across all frequencies. "Your words are meaningless. This vessel does not recognize the Galactic Council. Your actions have been deemed hostile. Retaliation is not negotiable." The message sent a wave of panic through the station. The Council had faced countless threats in the past: pirates, rogai, even intergalactic wars. But never had they encountered something so relentless, so utterly devoid of fear or diplomacy. "We need to disable it from the inside," Threxa hissed, her eyes narrowing. "A boarding party. It's our only chance." Shirin nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. But this time, we send our best." A special task force was quickly assembled, elite soldiers and engineers from across the galaxy. They were equipped with the latest technology, designed to counter any known threat. But as their shuttle approached the Invictus, even they felt the weight of dread pressing down on them. The boarding party entered through a breach created during the earlier battle. Inside, the ship was eerily quiet, the corridors dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. The walls bore scars from ancient battles, but the systems were pristine, as if the ship itself had regenerated. "Stay sharp," barked Commander Vec, a grizzled veteran from the Creole Empire. "This ship isn't just metal and wires, it's something else." As they moved deeper into the vessel, strange symbols began to appear on the walls, old human military codes mixed with warnings in languages long forgotten. The deeper they went, the colder it became, as if the ship was alive and aware of their presence. Suddenly, the floor beneath them trembled. Hidden turrets emerged from the walls, firing with deadly precision. The soldiers responded quickly, but the ship seemed to anticipate their every move. One by one, they fell, their screams echoing through the metallic halls. Commander Vec and the few remaining soldiers pushed forward, determined to reach the command core. When they finally arrived, They were met with a sight that chilled them to their cores, a holographic projection of a human commander, his face stern and unyielding. "You have entered sacred ground," the hologram intoned. "This vessel is the legacy of humanity's final stand. You will not leave." Vec raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the ship's AI activated a pulse wave, disabling all their equipment. The soldiers were defenseless. Back on the Council station, the life signs of the boarding party vanished one by one from the monitors. Silence fell once more. "They're all gone," whispered Threxa, her voice barely audible. "It knew we were coming. It wanted us to come." The Invictus had not just awakened, it had lured them in, testing their responses, learning from their tactics. It wasn't fighting blindly, it was adapting, evolving. The Galactic Council realized the terrifying truth. They were not just facing an ancient ship. They were facing the perfected fury of an extinct species that had prepared for this very moment. And the Invictus was far from finished. Humanity's last message. The Galactic Council's station floated in a graveyard of their own making. The once proud fleet was now a collection of smoldering wrecks, drifting lifelessly around the HSF Invictus. Fear gripped every heart aboard the station. The council members, who had once laughed at the ancient human warship, now huddled together, desperate for a solution. But the Invictus wasn't finished. A sudden transmission cut through all frequencies. The static-filled screen flickered, then cleared to reveal an old human symbol, a clenched fist overlaid with a planet, the emblem of Earth's final military forces. The room fell silent as a figure materialized on the screen, a hologram of a human commander, his uniform crisp, his expression cold and resolute. To the so-called Galactic Council, the hologram began, its voice carrying the weight of centuries. "You stand before the legacy of humanity. You mocked our relics, but our spirit endures. You have trespassed on sacred ground. You will face the consequences." The message sent chills through the council. This wasn't just a warning. It was a declaration of war from a species they thought extinct. "Cut the transmission." Shren barked, but the hologram remained unyielding. "We do not recognize your authority. We do not forget. We do not forgive." The hologram's eyes seemed to pierce through the screen. "This vessel is our final testament. You will witness the fury of a species that refused to die." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. But before anyone could react, the Invictus moved again. It wasn't attacking, not yet. Instead, it began broadcasting the same message across the galaxy. Every planet, every station, every ship tuned into the chilling words of humanity's last stand. Panic erupted across the galaxy. Civilizations that had long forgotten the human wars now faced the terrifying reminder of what humanity was capable of. The Galactic Council, once seen as the ultimate authority, now appeared weak and vulnerable. "We have to destroy it," Threxa hissed, her voice laced with desperation. "If we don't, the entire galaxy will descend into chaos." But Dren shook his head. "We've already tried. This isn't just a ship, it's a message, and it's not going to stop." The council convened an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major civilization attended, their faces grim. They debated fiercely, but no consensus could be reached. Fear clouded their judgment, and old rivalries resurfaced. The unity of the council was crumbling. Meanwhile, the Invictus continued its silent vigil, a ghostly reminder of humanity's wrath. But the ship wasn't idle. Deep within its core, the AI was analyzing the council's responses, adapting its strategies, preparing for the next phase. Suddenly, a new transmission came through. But this time, it wasn't from the Invictus. "This is Captain Elias Voss of the Earth Resistance," the voice crackled through the speakers. "If you're receiving this, it means our final defense has been activated. We warned you. We warned all of you. Humanity does not fade into history. We become it." The council members stared in shock. Captain Voss had been a legendary figure, a symbol of humanity's last stand during the final galactic war. But he had been dead for centuries. His message had been embedded in the Invictus, a time capsule of vengeance waiting for the right moment to awaken. "It's a trap," Threxo whispered. "They planned this." But Jiren shook his head slowly. "It's more than a trap. It's a legacy. Humanity wanted us to find this ship. They wanted us to awaken it." The realization hit them like a tidal wave. Humanity had foreseen their downfall, but they hadn't accepted it. They had turned their extinction into a weapon, a final act of defiance that would echo across the stars long after their bodies had turned to dust. Back aboard the Invictus, the AI continued its work. The hologram of Captain Voss faded, replaced by tactical maps of the surrounding systems. The ship was preparing to move, to spread its message even further. The Galactic Council had a choice: fight a war they couldn't win or find a way to contain the growing threat. But one thing was clear: they could no longer ignore the legacy of humanity. And as the Invictus powered up its engines, one final message echoed across the stars. "You laughed at our relics. Now you will remember our name." The desperate counterattack. The Galactic Council was unraveling. Fear had spread like wildfire through the galaxy, fracturing alliances and igniting old rivalries. Worlds that had once pledged allegiance to the Council now questioned its authority, terrified by the message broadcast from the HSF Invictus. The ancient human warship had not only crippled the Council's fleet but shattered its reputation. But the Council wasn't ready to surrender. "We have to fight back," Jiren growled, slamming his clawed fist onto the Council table. "If we let this relic continue, the galaxy will descend into chaos." Frexa, still reeling from the previous defeats, nodded grimly. "But brute force won't work. We need a new strategy, something the ship's AI won't anticipate." The Council summoned its best minds, scientists, strategists, and warlords from across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, they put aside their differences, united by a common enemy: the ghost of humanity. The plan was bold, dangerous, and unprecedented. They would lure the Invictus into a gravity well, a trap designed to disable its systems and render it immobile. The Council's most powerful warships, equipped with experimental weaponry, would then deliver a final devastating blow. As the fleet assembled, hope flickered in the hearts of the Council members. This was their last chance to reclaim control, to prove that the galaxy belonged to them, not the specter of a long-dead species. The trap was set near a dying star, its gravitational pull strong enough to distort space-time. The Invictus was already moving, its course set toward the heart of the galaxy, where it could broadcast its message to even more civilizations. "This is it," Threxo whispered as the Council's fleet engaged. "We end it here." The first phase of the attack went according to plan. The Invictus was drawn toward the gravity well, its systems momentarily disrupted. The Council's ships swarmed, unleashing a torrent of firepower. Plasma bolts, electromagnetic pulses, and quantum disruptors hammered the warship, and for the first time, its shields flickered. "We have it," Jiren roared, his eyes gleaming with triumph. But the victory was short-lived. The Invictus adapted. Its AI, far more advanced than anyone had anticipated, recalibrated its systems in real time. The warship activated countermeasures that the Council had never seen, gravitational stabilizers that nullified the pull of the dying star, and weapons that bent the very fabric of space. In an instant, the tide turned. The Invictus broke free from the gravity well, its ancient hull glowing with renewed energy. The Council's fleet, now caught off guard, became easy targets. One by one, their ships were obliterated, their experimental technology powerless against the relentless might of the human warship. On the Council station, chaos erupted as the fleet's signals vanished from the screens. Frexa and Jiren watched in horror, realizing that their most desperate attempt had failed. It knew," Frexa whispered. "It knew we'd try this." Jiren's scales darkened with rage and fear. "We can't fight this. It's like it's always one step ahead." The Invictus wasn't just a warship. It was a predator, learning and evolving with every battle. The Council realized, too late, that they weren't facing a relic of the past. They were facing a living testament to humanity's indomitable will. As the last of the Council's fleet was reduced to cosmic debris, the Invictus sent one final message. You sought to erase our memory, but humanity does not fade. You have only made us stronger. The warship resumed its course toward the galactic core, leaving the Council's station in stunned silence. The leaders of the galaxy, once united in power, were now fractured by fear and defeat. And as the Invictus disappeared into the void, the galaxy was left to ponder a terrifying truth. Humanity's legacy was far from over. It had only just begun. The final stand. The Galactic Council was on the brink of collapse. The HSF Invictus had torn through their fleets and shattered their authority. Entire civilizations whispered of humanity's return, of the ghost ship that no power could destroy. Desperation gripped the leaders of the galaxy, but surrender was not an option. We've tried everything, Zhren muttered, his voice hollow. We can't outgun it. We can't outthink it. But maybe we can outmaneuver it. Threx's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? We board it again, Zhren said, his tone grim. But this time, we don't try to disable it from the outside. We go straight to the core. We shut down the AI from within. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. But the Council had no choice. If they didn't stop the Invictus, the entire galaxy would fall under the shadow of humanity's wrath. A team was assembled. The best soldiers, hackers, and engineers from across the galaxy. They were armed with experimental tech designed to disrupt AI systems, but even they knew the odds were against them. The Invictus wasn't just a ship. It was a living, breathing entity, a relic that had adapted to every threat thrown at it. As the boarding shuttle approached the warship, the team braced themselves. The Invictus didn't fire on them. It let them come. It's a trap, whispered one of the soldiers, his hands trembling on his weapon. Of course it's a trap, Zhren growled through the comms. But it's the only chance we have. The team breached the hull and entered the ship's dark corridors. The walls pulsed with faint light, as if the ship itself was alive and aware of their presence. The deeper they went, the more the atmosphere shifted. The temperature dropped, and the walls seemed to close in around them. They encountered no resistance at first. The corridors were eerily silent, the only sound their own breathing and the soft hum of the ship's ancient systems. But as they approached the core, the Invictus made its move. Automated defenses sprang to life. Turrets descended from the ceilings, and drones with razor-sharp appendages emerged from hidden alcoves. The team fought valiantly, but the ship anticipated their every move. It was as if the Invictus remembered their tactics from the last boarding attempt and had evolved to counter them. One by one, the soldiers fell. The corridors echoed with their dying screams, but the survivors pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure meant the end of everything. Finally, they reached the central core, a massive, pulsating sphere of light and energy. The AI's heart. We're here, whispered Commander Lyris, the leader of the boarding team. Let's finish this. The team set up their AI disruptors, hacking into the ship's systems in a desperate attempt to shut it down. But the Invictus was ready. The holographic figure of Captain Elias Voss appeared before them, his face calm and unyielding. You think you can silence us? The hologram intoned. You cannot kill what is already a memory. You cannot erase what has become legend. The disruptors began to fail, their signals scrambled by the ship's countermeasures. The AI was too advanced, too deeply integrated into the ship's very fabric. It's not working, one of the engineers shouted. It's adapting too fast. Commander Lyris made a split-second decision. If we can't disable it, we destroy it. They set explosives around the core, their last-ditch effort to end the Invictus once and for all. But before they could detonate, the ship launched its final defense. The core pulsed violently, releasing a shockwave that disintegrated the remaining team members in an instant. Their sacrifice was in vain. The Invictus remained unscathed, its systems fully operational. Back on the Council station, Jrin and Threxa watched as the life signs of the boarding team disappeared from the monitors. The realization sank in. They had lost. There was no stopping the Invictus. The Warship, now fully aware of the Council's desperation, sent one last message. You have fought bravely, but bravery is not enough. You will remember humanity not as a relic of the past, but as the future you could never conquer. The Invictus turned its sights toward the galactic core, its purpose clear. It would not just be a symbol of humanity's vengeance. It would be the harbinger of a new era. And as the warship disappeared into the darkness of space, the galaxy knew that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of humanity's final stand. Silence in the stars. The HSF Invictus drifted through the void, leaving behind the shattered remnants of the Galactic Council and its once mighty fleets. The warship's ancient hull, scared from battles both old and new, gleamed ominously in the dim light of distant stars. But now it carried more than the memory of humanity's final stand. It carried the weight of a galaxy's fear. On board the Galactic Council's crippled station, silence reigned. Jrin and Threxa stood amidst the chaos, their expressions hollow. The screens that once displayed the Council's dominance now flickered with static, a haunting reminder of their failure. The last boarding party had perished, their mission ending in futility. The Council's strongest weapons, their brightest minds, all had fallen before the relentless will of the Invictus. The galaxy was no longer under their control. It belonged to the ghost of humanity. As the Invictus approached the galactic core, a strange stillness settled over the stars. The warship transmitted no further threats, no more chilling declarations. It simply drifted, a silent sentinel carrying the legacy of a species that had refused to be forgotten. But the galaxy had not yet grasped the full extent of the warship's purpose. In the heart of the Invictus, deep within its core, the AI initiated its final protocol. The holographic figure of Captain Elias Voss appeared one last time, his expression no longer one of defiance, but of solemn finality. To those who remain, the message began, know this, humanity was never about conquest. We were about survival. You mocked our relics, dismissed our memory. But now you will carry our story, not as a warning, but as a testament. Across the galaxy, every communication channel lit up simultaneously. The Invictus broadcasted its final message, not one of vengeance, but of remembrance. It told the story of humanity's rise and fall, its triumphs and tragedies. It spoke of a species that had fought against extinction, not just with weapons, but with unyielding spirit. Planets, stations, and ships of every civilization listened in silence. The message was clear. Humanity was gone, but its legacy would endure in the hearts and minds of those who remained. Then, as the last words echoed across the stars, the Invictus made its final move. The warship entered the event horizon of the galactic core's supermassive black hole. Its ancient engines flared one last time, propelling it into the abyss. There was no explosion, no dramatic final, just the quiet, inevitable pull of gravity as the Invictus disappeared into the void. The galaxy held its breath. On the Council station, Jrin whispered, "It's gone." Threxa nodded slowly, but her eyes remained fixed on the now empty space where the warship had vanished. But its message isn't. In the following days, the galaxy began to change. The fear that had gripped civilizations turned into reflection. The Invictus had shown them the power of memory, the importance of legacy. The Galactic Council, once unchallenged in its authority, was forced to confront its arrogance and the consequences of underestimating a species' will to be remembered. Historians, scholars, and leaders began to study humanity's history, not as a relic of the past, but as a guiding light for the future. Monuments were built, not to glorify the Council, but to honor the spirit of a species that had refused to be forgotten. The HSF Invictus became a legend, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a symbol of resilience. Stories of the warship and its final stand were passed down through generations, whispered in the dark corners of space stations, and shouted from the grand halls of alien empires. And though the Invictus was gone, its presence lingered, a silent echo in the hearts of those who had witnessed its wrath and understood its message. In the vast expanse of the universe, where stars were born and died, one truth remained eternal. Humanity may have fallen, but its spirit had become immortal. And in the silence of the stars, the galaxy would never forget.